So let's have a look at what's involved in using Visual Studio to replay an MDX load test. So as a starting point, we've got a SQL Server table that has all the MDX queries we want to replay, along with some reporting services ones that have parameterized MDX. Okay, so that's the starting point, and there's a previous video that shows you how to input and trace. So once I've got this table, which is called queries here, I can go into Visual Studio, open up the sample project, and I can create a new load test. Add new load test. And there's a wizard that will step me through. Now, if you don't want to use the wizard, there is one that's already prepared called MDX Replay that will let you do this. But I'm going to step you through the wizard and we'll create a load test from scratch. Okay, so I'm going to call it scenario 1. I'm not going to use think times. That's more for kind of websites there. Okay, and I've only got my laptop with 4 cores, and I'm going to few of the cores, so I'm just going to use 2 threads. It's going to ask me how I want to mix the test, but I'm just going to have a single unit test, which is just the replay. So I add the text, and there's a unit test called execute next MDX. So that's effectively going to do the replay. If I had coded unit tests, like where I'd actually written one unit test per query, I could have selected the mix of reports that I wanted to use and the percentages. For example, I could say, well, most of my users are running this product sales report and these are the percentages. Okay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the execute next MDX from the trace file. There you go. My network speed, I want to simulate it slower, and what computers I want to monitor. For example, I probably want to monitor the analysis service counters, so I can add custom counters to this to monitor things like the threads and the memory usage on analysis services. For the moment, I'm just going to monitor the application counters, which are like CPU, disk, and so forth. How long do I want to run the for? Or do I want to run it for a certain number of iterations? Now I'm just going to run this for 2,000 queries, say, for example. Done. That's now ready to go. So I can give it a name. I'm going to call it sample 1. It's very important that you give it a name, because when you come to retrieve it later on from its database, the only way of identifying it is really by its name. Okay, so I select the load test to run and hit run. That's now running. Okay, if I double click here, I can check the key indicators here, right? So it's showing me a lot of key counters. You can see the CPU is up to about 60%. It's doing about, currently doing 74 tests per second. 2 threads are loaded, and disk transfers up to about 160 IOPS. Okay, so not too much. So we can see we've got a steady load on the computer here. Okay, now it's just a very short test. These are very small queries as well. They're mainly parameter queries which come from RAM. Once it's finished, it'll give you this summary screen, and it'll tell you how long the test took, the 95% quartile, and the average test time. So you can use this to benchmark different environments. For example, if I change the hardware, I managed to run 2,000 queries in 31 seconds. Can I build a hardware platform that can run that many queries in 15 seconds? Can I push it a little bit harder by increasing the threads? Because I can see that it only went up to 60% of CPU. Maybe if I'd run it on 3 threads, I might get a few more queries. Okay, so that's the basis of executing a load test using Visual Studio.